In the early 1900s, alchemist Schwaller de Lubitz presented a work called The Temple of Man. It demonstrated that the architects of the Luxor Temple used sacred geometry, which reflected the exact proportions of the human body.
The temple at Luxor is dedicated to the god Netta Amun. Amun is the air and the breath principle, and the voice raised in song.
Above the optical center of the temple, in what would correspond to the higher glands of the brain, we find a set of 3 interlocking sanctuaries. The solid stone walls between the 3 chambers hold one of the most amazing surprises to be found at Luxor. The expansive imagery carved into each side of separating walls can only be understood by combining the images carved on the other side of the same wall. The images interlock, enhance, and complete each other. It is as if a single image or idea was etched partially on one side of a thick sheet of glass and partially on the opposite side.
In the bark of Amut here, we can see that the figures, there aren't any on the green wall, but on the opposite wall, all of the figures that sit in the bark are clearly visible. These are in the red. In this same area, on top, we can see Khnum spinning on his potter's wheel, the Ka double of the king. And then in the transposition on the opposite wall, there is also the child's Ka sitting in the boat. Khnum is one of the green netters that is a shaper, very much like Ptah. He ends up having a potter's wheel, and he fashions and shapes both the physical body. And here is Geb, also a green netter. Similar to Khnum, they have these antlers that extend the spinning breath, if you like, the in-breath and the out-breath. We can see another where Horus is actually on the spinning wheel, and Isis and Osiris are taking part in shaping and fashioning the Ka, or the Horus figure.
It is as if a single image or idea was etched partially on one side of a thick sheet of glass and partially on the opposite side.
These 3 barks all move upwards along the trachea within the temple, and you can see here that the poles bearing the barks are all at throat level. This means that they're all probably chanting and singing. Here is the bark close-up of Amun, where there are 4 sets of feet, means that the voice here is vibrato and strong, and at this point it turns to come through the pharynx and out the mouth. In this slide we can see that Amun's bark has got 2 levels of that which is being carried. There is Amun at the top and there is Horus below. Both are seen to be instructing the king in later situations. This bark sits across the passageway and then redirects the energy, the bark directing itself out the mouth, which means that the song language instruction is being projected. In this slide, Horus is seen to be instructing the king using a golden ankh, and Amun is also instructing the mouth of the king with an ankh. And this overlays the bark, where the bark has poles that are being born, passing through the mouths of both Horus and the king and Amun. All very accidental and synchronous, isn't it? But it conveys language, instruction, and a song language, a spell language, if you like, a degree of communication and insight. Vital messages are being conveyed. The king's training is being done upon 2 levels. Remember what is missing and what is in the center of the bark. Amun's instruction, Horus's instruction. Both are necessary. The divine breath, Amun, and Horus, the divine intention from the third eye. divine breath, sacred language, exquisite and rapturous sound, communication of a sacred intention, quality, voice, life, power, grace, energy that comes in voice and communication. Here, the throat chakra and the third eye are the chakras ruled over by Amun and Horus. The ancient Chinese have a saying that the heart is enthroned upon the tongue. In this next slide where the transparency overlays happen, the first slide shows butchered food, which obviously goes in through the doorway of the mouth. The next slide shows both Horus and Anubis instructing and taking care of the king. Set here represents the shadow part of abusiveness in language, and Horus the creative, honoring and respectful communication. This door is the divine creative power. The tale that I tell you here is that the mouth is one end and the bum is the other end of the alimentary canal.
Walls depict a sacred thought being transmitted through the brain.
This next transparency is in the brow area between rooms 5 and 12. Now room 5 is the frontal cortex and represents forethought, whilst room 12 is the eyes, ears and sinuses. This has to do with Amun ruling air and light, if you like, and Amun is pictured in this area on that north wall, which is the lower green wall that interfaces with room 12. Here we see Amun depicted 4 times, and he is preoccupied, you might say, with the thought, air and light to do with the material plane or the senses, which is looking into room 12. King in the middle is surrounded by the red of Lower Egypt, the base instincts of desire to need to reproduce and to eat, whilst the white is the Upper Egypt of the south. Since Egypt is the black land and red, white and black are the colours of alchemy, Steiner said that if you weave red, white and black together you get the colour of flesh, which is an incarnate form of the gods themselves. Chinese say that the best 1/40th part of your food becomes blood, and the best 1/40th part of your blood becomes jing, or sexual essence, and this may be what is then distilled into lymph. Shvala also depicts a picture of the choroid process, saying this is where the lymph is actually fermented and created. So there's a special process between the corpus callosum, the choroid process, and the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus controls the temperature of the body and allows the process of fermentation, which is indicated and shown by the Aries Bram's head.
Unusual properties of the pineal gland illuminate the many strange references to this most mysterious part of the brain. In strange and unexpected ways, the temples demonstrated a special emphasis on the pineal gland and its role as the intermediary between mind and body, the seat of consciousness, and possibly the gateway into and out of life.